3 armies surrounded my city beneath 3 different banners. Westmere's gold sheaves filled the western ridge. Rivergate's blue chains crowded the riverbank. Highwatch's black towers advanced straight up the north road behind enough steel to make the morning look gray. From the wall, Greenvale looked badly outmatched. Our stonework was still pale where dwarven masons had extended it. Goblin bridge braces showed beneath the northern gate. Orc outriders waited among human farmers on the eastern slope, and fox-eared couriers slipped between shield companies with message cases tied beneath their coats. White field hospital flags moved above Lyrua's tents behind the line. None of it matched the army books I had inherited. That was why it worked. Garrick stood at the center in blue-gray armor. Weight shifted off his injured left leg, watching the enemy with the expression of a carpenter judging warped timber. Serafina's golden hair lifted behind her white and gold plate. Pip crouched beside a signal basket, still small enough that the stone Merlin hid most of him. Below us, Lord Bale's herald demanded that Greenvale surrender its walls, road, mine, army, and non-human residents. The people around me went very quiet. Grusk's broad goblin ears flattened against his head. Poor Guh rested one green hand on the axe at her hip. Tavi's copper tail went rigid beneath her russet coat. They were not frightened by the demand. They were visibly angry that anyone still thought they could be separated from their own city. I looked along a wall built by people the 3 lords had tried to starve, buy, frighten, or drive away. No, I told the herald. Greenvale's strongest defense was not stone, or summoned heroes, or anything the gotcha had given me. It was the number of people our enemies had failed to divide. Getting them into the same city had nearly destroyed us first. 2 months earlier, on the morning after Greenvale became a fortified town, I woke with my cheek against a repaired kitchen table and honey stuck to one sleeve. Someone was ringing the refugee bell outside. I had not even made the banner draw. The feast had ended sometime after midnight. By sunrise, the square smelled of cold ash, spilled ale, damp timber, and the bread Helsa had covered before Bramble could find it. Lanterns hung crooked above the tables. Half the northern wall was still a row of wagons chained wheel to wheel, and smoke stains from the siege climbed the manor stones like dark fingers. Greenvale was officially a fortified town. It looked like one that had been in a fight. The bell rang again. Pip came through the manor door hard enough to make it strike the wall. His new green hood sat sideways over his sandy hair, and the silver scout badge Lyru had pinned on him the night before bounced against his chest. People on the south ridge, he said. Lots. More behind them. 2 carts broke in the mud, and one woman says the next group hasn't eaten since yesterday. His voice stayed steady, but his amber eyes were too wide. Pip had seen armies approach Greenvale without looking that worried. How long? First ones will reach the gate before noon. The system had said 3,700 displaced people were moving toward us. I had assumed moving meant days. The universe had once again mistaken an estimate for a challenge. Lyru entered behind him with her chestnut braid half finished and her herb satchel already across her shoulder. She took in my wrinkled coat, the honey on my sleeve, and the emerald system panel still waiting above the table. You didn't draw, she said. I was busy governing from an unconscious position. Her mouth twitched, but the amusement disappeared when Pip repeated his report. Lyrua's shoulders tightened beneath her cream blouse. She was not panicking. I had learned the difference. Panic made people move without choosing a direction. Lyru became very still while she chose 6 directions at once. I need the clinic cleared, she said, and every clean blanket we have. Separate fever, wounds, and exhaustion before they reach the square. Take whoever you need. I will. Eat something. She left before I could point out that dried honey was technically food. I opened the town-level banner. The emerald window expanded, edged in fine gold. Town Foundation draw available. Prosperity cost confirmed. I pressed the icon. Light gathered above the cracked floorboards. For one hopeful second, I imagined granaries, wagons, or perhaps a legendary cook capable of feeding 4,000 people from one onion. A woman appeared holding 3 ledgers and a brass stylus. She was compact, perhaps 29, with warm brown skin and dark coiled hair pinned neatly away from her face. A teal clerk's coat fell over cream traveling layers. Her amber-brown eyes moved from me to the smoke-stained ceiling, then to the stack of village accounts on the table. Her expression changed with impressive restraint. One eyebrow rose. Mira Quill, the system announced. Municipal Records Specialist. Loyalty unassigned. Mira placed her ledgers on the table and opened ours. Is this the complete population register? She asked. It was complete yesterday. It contains first names, occupations, and, in one case, the note tall Cooper with loud geese. That description has never failed us. She looked at me directly. The smallest pull at one corner of her mouth suggested she had not decided whether I was joking or incompetent. The system opened a second reward. Civic Survey Archive acquired. Blueprint set includes ward grids, drainage grades, public kitchens, registry offices, emergency housing, storehouse controls, and appeal records. Nothing built itself. Of course it did not. Mira studied the floating plans without awe. How many clerks do I have? None. Surveyors? Pip knows every ditch within 10 miles. Pip straightened proudly. Ink supply? I checked the shelf. Half a bottle. Mira closed her eyes for one measured breath. Then your miraculous civic archive has provided several excellent ways to document our collapse. I liked her immediately. Garrick and Oren arrived together, already arguing. Garrick wore his battered blue-gray gambeson and carried a guard roster. Oren had somehow found time to put on his heavy leather apron, which meant he expected the emergency to involve structures and intended to be offended by them personally. Serafina followed in white and gold armor with her blue half-cape folded over one arm. Even after a siege and a feast, her long golden hair looked orderly enough to accuse the rest of us. I spread the system's ward plan across the table. Refugees arrive before noon, I said. Lyru controls medical intake. Garrick controls the gates and security screening. Oren marks safe ground for kitchens, latrines, and shelter. Pip puts scouts on every road and gives Mira his route counts. Mira builds a register and trains anyone who can write. Garrick's jaw tightened. With respect, we cannot admit thousands through a damaged gate without knowing who is among them. He was not refusing. His hand had settled flat over the roster, and the tendons stood out across his knuckles. He was asking whether I understood what my order could cost. Agreed, I said. Families stay together. Weapons are peacebound and recorded, not stolen. Anyone accused of a crime gets a hearing. Anyone sick sees Lyru before they see a guard. Oren jabbed one thick finger at the plan. These drainage grades assume competent labor. Then you should supervise. I was going to. I wanted it understood that the drawings were optimistic. Serafina studied the roads. And you? That question used to have one answer. I would go wherever the work looked heaviest and try to carry it until I fell over. Beyond the window, Greenvale's bell rang a third time. Doors opened around the square. Tired people from the feast began moving tables, lifting water barrels, and relighting public ovens without waiting for me to name every task. I coordinate, I said, and I stay where all of you can find me. Lyru would have approved, probably after making me wash the honey off my sleeve. Pip leaned over the southern map. His fingertips stopped at the ridge road. I can see the first banners, he said quietly. They were not noble banners. They were blankets tied to poles so children at the back of the column would know which cart belonged to their family. Tomorrow had arrived early. Greenvale opened its gates. The first refugee column did not look like an invasion. It looked like a road that had learned to limp. Families came down the southern slope beneath patched blankets and wicker rain covers. Two men carried an old woman in a chair with the legs cut short. A dwarven mason pushed a barrow full of chisels with a sleeping human child curled on top. Beastkin drovers led thin goats beside farmers whose boots had been repaired with bark. An elven woman walked with one hand pressed to a bandage at her ribs and the other wrapped around a cooking pot. They carried keys to houses they would never see again. That detail bothered me more than the empty carts. Lyru had stretched white cloth between poles outside the gate to mark medical intake. Her braid was finished now, pulled tight enough to stay out of her face. She moved from patient to patient with two apprentices behind her, looking at eyes, tongues, wounds, and the way people held themselves when they thought no one was watching. Fever to the left shelter, she called. Open wounds by the blue buckets. If you can walk, keep the center clear. No one is taking your children away. The last sentence changed the crowd. Shoulders loosened. A mother lowered the wooden ladle she had been holding like a club. At the gate, Garrick's guards tied peace cords around sword hilts and recorded bows, axes, and hunting spears. They did not seize tools. A woodsman's axe could split a skull, but it could also build a roof, and Greenvale needed roofs more urgently than it needed another pile of confiscated iron. Mira had turned 3 feast tables into a registry line. Her half-bottle of ink sat in the center with the importance of a sacred relic. Pip ran between the road and the tables carrying chalk counts on scraps of roof slate. 182 in the first group, he said. 31 children under 10. 7 wagons. 2 fever cases. 3 goats that bite. Do the goats have a trade? Mira asked without looking up. Pip considered that seriously. 1 ate a sleeve. Textiles, then. The boy grinned and ran back toward the road. I walked the line because standing on a platform and welcoming people would have been easier, and therefore probably wrong. The stories came in pieces. Westmere soldiers had bought every grain sack in one village, then closed the road when prices doubled. Rivergate toll collectors had charged families once for their cart, once for each wheel, and once more for the shadow it cast across the bridge. Munboars had torn through 2 camps after patrols vanished from the north road. Goblin arrows had driven another column south, although no one had seen which goblins fired them. Most people had not chosen Greenvale because they trusted me. They had chosen it because every other road had become worse. Near the well, Helsa and the kitchen crews poured barley stew into every bowl they could find. The smell of onion, smoke, and rendered fat spread across the square. Hungry people watched each ladle with a focus that made conversation feel rude. One of Greenvale's original farmers caught my sleeve. Marin Holt had stood on the wall during both sieges. He was 60, square-backed, and usually patient. Now his face had gone red above his beard. "My lord, we counted stores yesterday," he said. "You know what we have. 32 days at the old population. Less with the surrendered soldiers still registering. Less." He pointed at the line. His finger shook, not from age but anger. "There will be 4,000 mouths by the end of the week. My grandchildren live here. Are you asking me to watch their winter grain disappear because strangers reached the gate first?" Several nearby residents stopped carrying benches. Refugees close enough to hear went rigid. A beastkin father pulled his daughter behind his leg. Marin was furious at my answer before I gave it. His jaw worked beneath his beard, and his free hand had closed around the edge of his belt until the leather creaked. He was also right about the grain. "No," I said. "I am asking you to help me make 32 days last long enough to open the North Road. Equal rations begin tonight, including mine. Children, the sick, and heavy labor crews receive priority portions. Every storehouse gets measured twice a day. And if the road stays closed, then we change the work before we change the promise. More fishing crews. Mushroom sheds in the mine's clean galleries. Fast greens around every drainage ditch. We trade silver south even at a loss. And if I have to tell people there is not enough, I do it with the same ledger open for everyone." His anger did not vanish. Honest fear rarely did because a lord spoke calmly. But his grip loosened. "My youngest knows the river pools," he said after a moment. "Better than most. Put her with the fishing survey." Marin looked toward the refugees. The beastkin father met his eyes without moving his daughter. "Equal rations," Marin repeated. "Equal rules." He gave one reluctant nod and returned to the benches. That was the first argument of the day. It was not the last. By mid-afternoon, rain had turned the square edges into brown paste. The town smelled of wet wool, horse sweat, wood smoke, and too many people trying not to be sick in public. Every roofed space filled. Oran-marked shelter rose beyond the eastern palisade with stakes and string while crews stripped boards from siege barricades. A merchant wagon rolled through the gate under a polished red awning. The man riding beside it looked as if the road had apologized before touching him. Pelhero wore a dark plum coat, clean gloves, and a silver chain across his waistcoat. His beard was trimmed to a sharp point. Behind him, 6 wagons carried flour, lamp oil, dried peas, and canvas. People noticed. Hunger made those wagons brighter than treasure. Pell stepped down and bowed with exactly enough depth to acknowledge my title without suggesting affection. "Lord Rowan." I feared the reports were exaggerated. "I see they were conservative. Do you sell food or commentary?" "Both, though only one is expensive." His smile was practiced and not entirely unpleasant. That made him more dangerous than a man who sneered. He produced a contract already sealed. Pell would release his stores immediately. Greenvale would repay him after the North Road opened, with first claim on silver exports, exclusive warehouse rights, and authority to adjust interest for risk. Mira appeared at my shoulder before I reached the third paragraph. She read silently. Her face remained calm until one nostril flared. The risk adjustment has no ceiling, she said. Pell spread his hands. Neither does the risk. The exclusivity applies to warehouses that do not yet exist. I admire preparation. It also applies to mills, granaries, river docks, caravan yards, and facilities functionally related to trade. A flexible phrase. A predatory one. Pell's smile tightened, though he kept his voice smooth. His thumb rubbed once across the edge of his silver chain. And you are. The woman documenting why Lord Rowan is not signing this. I handed the contract back. Greenvale will buy the food at a public price, I said. Silver on delivery. No exclusivity, no adjustable interest, no private control of public stores. You do not have enough silver to purchase all 6 wagons. Then we purchase 4 and invite bids on the other 2. His eyes moved across the crowded square. He understood that refusing would make him the merchant who kept food covered while children watched. 5, he said, at a modest road premium. Mira named a figure. He stared at her. She raised one eyebrow. We bought 5 wagons. By sunset, 914 newcomers had passed through the gate. Mira's ledgers contained names, family groups, injuries, trades, tools, languages, and places of origin. She had recruited 12 clerks, including a dwarf who wrote tiny perfect letters, 2 former tax copyists, an elven schoolteacher, and a shepherd girl who could add faster than any of them. Oren's shelter grid stretched east in straight muddy rows. It was not comfortable. It was dry, drained, and far enough from the cooking fires not to burn down from one dropped coal. I found Lyru beside the clinic washing blood from her hands in a bucket gone pink. How bad? 2 deaths on the road before they reached us. None since the gate. Her green eyes looked dull with exhaustion. 4 broken bones, 19 infected wounds, 3 pregnancies close enough that I want them under a roof, and more hunger than sickness. She glanced toward the food lines. Marin was angry. He had reason. So did the people who heard him. I know. Lyru studied my face, then wiped one damp hand down the front of her brown apron. You cannot promise everyone they will never be afraid, she said. I can promise fear does not get to write the law. Her expression softened. That sounded almost wise. Write it down before I ruin it. Behind us, a child laughed when Bramble stole a turnip from an open basket. The sound was small, but it traveled through the tired square. Several adults smiled despite themselves. The system opened across my vision. Emergency migration response recognized. Population registered, 1,896. Food stability, declining. Sanitation risk, severe. Next settlement failure probability, dysentery. I looked at the crowded tents, the muddy water running between them, and the single line of latrine stakes Oren had managed before dark. An army had not followed the refugees through our gate. Something smaller had, and it could kill more people than Malkin ever had. At dawn, Oren drove a red-painted stake into the eastern field and announced that anyone who moved it would answer to him personally. This line is waste, he said. That line is drinking water. If you confuse them, I will make you explain the difference to every grave you dig. No one moved the stake. The Civic Survey Archive gave us drainage grades, soil depth tables, wall spacing, kitchen layouts, and clean diagrams of buildings we did not have materials to construct. Oren improved the plans by insulting them. He shifted the latrine trenches downhill, moved 2 kitchens away from a stand of resinous pines, and rejected the archive's recommended bathhouse because Greenvale currently possessed neither enough brick nor enough people with time to bathe elegantly. Useful drawing, he admitted after changing most of it. For a town made of money on flat ground. We have mud and panic, I said. Better foundation than pride. Pride does not compact. We split the town into temporary wards around water points and kitchens. Each ward elected or selected 2 delegates by nightfall, one from Greenvale's existing residents and one from the new arrivals. Their first authority was not glorious. They counted buckets, blankets, shovel crews, and missing children. Tavi Reedstep appeared because 300 people were arguing over which caravan had rights to a cooking shelter. She was a fox-eared beastkin woman a few years older than Lai Ru, with auburn hair, gray-green eyes, and a russet travel coat patched at both elbows. Her copper-brown tail flicked sharply whenever someone interrupted her. The Blue Blanket families shared salt with the North Carts for 6 days, she told Mira. They cooked together. The mill refugees have infants and need the warmer side. The drovers can take the outer fire because they are already awake for the animals. Who appointed you? A broad man demanded. Tavi turned. Her ears angled backward, and her smile showed no warmth. You did, when you shouted for me every time something went wrong between here and the river. The man opened his mouth, reconsidered, and carried his pot to the outer fire. Mira handed Tavi a slate. Ward delegate, she said. I did not agree to that. Neither did I. Hold the slate. By noon, Tavi had reorganized 3 kitchens, found 2 missing children, and identified a wagon of spoiled barley before it entered the ration store. Lai Ru ran the medical wards with less diplomacy. A group of refugees tried to move fever patients back among their families after hearing the word quarantine. Lai Ru planted herself in the shelter entrance. She was shorter than 2 of the men confronting her and wore no weapon. They still stopped. We know what noble quarantine means, one said. His cheeks were hollow beneath a week's beard. They locked the doors and wait. Lai Ru's face went pale with controlled anger. She did not raise her voice. One hand closed around the strap of her herb satchel until her knuckles whitened. Then you know what bad healers do, she said. Look behind me. The doors are open. Their families can sit outside the cloth line. They receive the same food, clean blankets, boiled water, and someone checking them every hour. But if you carry fever into the sleeping tents, children will die because you were afraid of a word. The man looked past her. Inside, Greenvale residents and refugee apprentices changed bedding together. A little girl waved at him from beneath a quilt. His shoulders dropped. I stay where she can see me. Good, Lai Ru said. And you wash your hands before you touch her cup. The first sanitation crews came from people too old, injured, or untrained for construction. Mira recorded the work at the same public rate as hauling timber. That mattered. No one wanted to become the lowest class in a new town because their first useful job involved a shovel and lime. We built hand-washing frames beside every kitchen. Clay workers fired rough drainage pipes. Dwarven masons lined the busiest well channels with stone. Elven growers planted bitterleaf near waste areas because its color changed when groundwater fouled. None of those people agreed on the proper breakfast. The dwarves wanted salt porridge thick enough to stand a spoon in. The elven families steeped pine tips and dried berries. Tavi's caravan roasted roots with enough pepper to make Garrick cough from across the lane. Greenvale's original residents watched all of it with the wary concentration of people expecting foreign food to become a political argument. Then Helsa traded sun-wheat cakes for pepper. By supper, she was selling both. That was how Greenvale usually solved cultural conflict when politicians were not nearby to improve it. The town changed by the hour. Canvas lanes became timber frames. Chalk marks became drainage ditches. The hammering never stopped, even after dark, though Oren enforced quiet around the clinic by threatening to confiscate mallets. Children who had arrived clinging to carts began drawing ward symbols on flat stones. Human hands, dwarven hands, and green goblin-shaped hands did not appear yet. We had not met the goblins. But foxtails, wheat leaves, mountain hammers, and little cups of steaming soup covered the paths. On the 3rd evening, Mira brought me the grain forecast. She had tied her coiled hair back with 2 brass styluses now, and ink stained the side of her hand. Tavi followed, carrying 3 slates, and looking personally betrayed by arithmetic. Registered population is 4,206. Mira said. Another 600 are expected within 2 days. Current stores last 13 days under equal rationing, 16 if the fishing and forage crews meet optimistic targets. And if they meet realistic targets? 14. Tavi put down a slate. The North Road has grain beyond it. I saw Westmere wagons before the crossings closed. The road also has munbors, goblin archers, and a collapsed bridge, I said. Yes. Those are why the grain is still there. Her tail snapped once against her coat. The obstacle annoyed her far more than it intimidated her. The system confirmed what the ledgers already knew. Food stability, 21. Disease risk, controlled. Housing risk, high. Regional trade route required. For 3 days, Greenvale had fought death with soap, ditches, soup, and accurate names. We were winning, but no city could eat its own paperwork. We needed the North Road. Before I could send soldiers north, Greenvale nearly fought itself over a stolen hammer. The hammer belonged to Doran, one of Oren's original carpenters. A surrendered Thornwatch soldier named Cal Voss had been seen carrying it toward the eastern shelters. By the time I reached the ward court, 30 people had gathered beneath a canvas roof. Half convinced the old soldiers were thieves, and half convinced Greenvale residents wanted an excuse to drive newcomers out. Cal stood beside the table in a plain work shirt. He had fought against us 6 days earlier. The fading bruise along his jaw came from Garrick's shield line. Doran pointed at him. My mark is on the handle. It is, Cal said. Angry murmurs moved through the shelter. Mira sat at the center with the first appeal ledger open. Tavi represented the East Ward. Marinholt stood for the older residents, looking uncomfortable with the role. Why did you have it? I asked. Because the roof frame over Shelter 9 split, Cal said. Foreman said take any marked tool from the public rack. Oren's face darkened. I said any tool marked for public use. I thought the cut on the handle was the mark. Doran snatched the hammer from the table and turned it over. 2 shallow lines crossed the ash wood. That's my family mark. Cal looked at it, then at the painted green stripe on the public tools stacked behind Oren. His anger drained into embarrassment. His shoulders folded inward. I did not know, he said. The case took 10 minutes once everyone stopped arguing about what it represented. Cal returned the hammer, apologized, and spent an hour replacing the worn handle because he had damaged it pulling nails. Doran agreed to paint the family mark blue. Oren ordered every public tool marked in green on all 4 sides and complained that any civilization needing colored hammers was doomed. No one was exiled. No one lost a hand. The roof over Shelter 9 did not collapse. The result traveled through the wards faster than any proclamation I could have made. That afternoon, we posted Greenvale's citizenship rules. Mira insisted on plain language. Every resident received protection under the same law. No forced labor. No hidden tax or fee. Work for public projects paid the published rate or earned the published ration share. Species, birthplace, former title, and wealth did not decide guilt. Crimes received evidence, witnesses, and an appeal. Residents could choose full citizenship after registration and a season of lawful residence, or remain protected guests and travelers. Emergency service during the migration counted toward the residence period. No one had to surrender a language, family name, faith, or harmless custom to belong. The rules pleased almost no one completely. Some original residents wanted voting seats reserved for the 37 families who had stayed before the first siege. Some refugees heard registration and assumed a tax trap. Former Thornwatch soldiers wanted assurances they would not be tried twice for obeying lawful orders. Beastkin families wanted market rules that did not classify tails, horns, or traveling tents as livestock hazards. We held hearings in the square. They were loud. An old Greenvale woman named Sella struck her cane against the paving stones. My sons built that wall before any of them knew Greenvale existed. Do their voices count the same as someone who arrived yesterday? Tavi's ears stood straight, but she waited until Sella finished. My brother died keeping 300 people together on the river road, she said. Does his work count less because your wall was somewhere else? The square tightened around the question. No, I said. Neither does Sella's. Founding service deserves record, honor, and responsibility. It does not make her grandchildren more human than yours. Sella stared at Tavi. Tavi stared back. Then Sella grunted. Your ward keeps leaving cartwheels in the fire lane. Your geese attack our children. Those geese attack everyone. It was not friendship. It was a workable beginning. Lyru found me after sunset copying the final rules onto a board outside the clinic. Golden light from the cook fires caught the loose strands around her braid. She leaned against the post and watched me misspell jurisdiction twice. You know Mira has clerks, she said. I am demonstrating humility. You are demonstrating why we need clerks. She took the brush from me and corrected the word. Across the lane, Cal Voss helped Doran lift the repaired shelter beam. Sella's geese chased 2 beastkin children around a water barrel while Tavi shouted advice that did not help. They are still frightened, Lyru said. So am I. She looked at me. Of them, of failing this many people at once. Her expression softened. but the worry stayed in her eyes. Then stop trying to succeed alone. She handed the brush back. Garrick is waiting at the mine office. Pip returned from the North Road. The humor left her face when she said it. He found bodies. Pip had laid his map across the mine office table and weighted the corners with pieces of purified crystal. He had washed the mud from his face, but missed a dark streak beside one ear. His russet green hood was torn at the shoulder. Garrick stood behind him with both hands on his cane, mouth compressed into a hard line. "Show me," I said. Pip tapped the first chalk mark. "Munbor's here. 6 adults, maybe more." They rooted up the old milestone and pushed 2 wagons into the ditch. His finger moved north. "Crystal growth in the trees here. Not like the mine. Clear instead of purple, but the roots move when animals get close." Another mark. "Human toll post at Split Pine. Blue chain painted on the boards. They charge anyone going north, but not wagons going east toward Rivergate." Another. "The bridge at Whitewater is down. 1 stone pier still stands. There are goblin camps on both sides. Red handprints on the west bank, cooking smoke on the east." He stopped at a small cross drawn near the road. "The bodies?" I asked. Pip nodded. 5 traders. 2 had red-fletched goblin arrows. 1 had a Rivergate toll token in his pocket. Their food was gone, but the silver stayed. "Raiders who leave silver," Garrick said. "Either disciplined or hurried. Or the food was the point," I said. Pip stared at the cross. He was trying to keep his face blank and failing around the eyes. "One was young," he said. "Not a child. Older than me. That distinction mattered greatly when you were 11. You did right by marking the place and coming back," I said. "I could have followed the tracks. And then I would have needed scouts to find my scout." His mouth tightened. He did not doubt the danger. Useful children simply believed usefulness should exempt them from being protected. I crouched until we were eye level. "Founding the scouts means teaching other people to bring information home. It does not mean becoming information someone else has to recover." He looked away first. "I came home. You did. That is why I am proud of you." Garrick pretended to study the map while Pip scrubbed one sleeve across his eyes. "We planned the road column that night. Garrick requested 80 guards, 2 shield companies, mounted scouts, and authority to clear hostile positions. Orrin requested every draft animal in town, 40 laborers, 6 wagons of timber, stone drills, cranes, rope, pitch, lime, and 3 weeks. Lyru requested a medical wagon, clean water barrels, translators, and the right to send everyone home if they brought fever into her camp. Mira requested duplicate inventories, numbered seals, a toll ledger, and someone other than Pip who could draw a straight map. Tavi requested space for traders carrying samples, because opening a road without knowing what people wanted to trade was just marching with better paperwork. Serafina listened until they finished. "You are building a town on wheels," she said. "A small one," I said, "with 80 soldiers. A nervous small town." The system offered a faster answer. "Regional obstruction detected. Combat banner available. Possible rewards: elite ranger cadre, siege mage contract, enchanted road-clearing weapon." The emerald icons glowed temptingly above the map. I closed them. Garrick raised an eyebrow. "Saving points. Waiting until we know which problem we actually have." Goblins had killed traders. Human toll collectors might have helped. Magical roots guarded part of the road. Munbors had taken over the fields. An elite ranger cadre could fight any of them and still make the whole situation worse. The floor trembled. Purified crystals clicked together on the table. Dust drifted from one roof beam. Everyone went still. Deep beneath us, something answered with a vibration too low to hear and too heavy to mistake. The crystal WIRM was alive. Bramble, asleep beside the stove, lifted his round tawny head. The moss stripe along his back shimmered faintly. He stared toward the mine entrance, gave one worried grunt, and pushed himself against Lyrua's boots. "No deep blasting," I said. "No new galleries below the 3rd marker. Sure the old supports and monitor every tremor." Orrin nodded immediately. He looked irritated, which was how fear usually appeared on him. "The road crews will want quarry stone," he said. "Surface quarry only. The Guardian stays undisturbed." Serafina's gaze remained on the crystal pieces. For now, I agreed. That problem waited beneath Greenvale, wounded, powerful, and unfinished. It was not the problem I could solve this week. At dawn, Our road column rolled through the wagon-blocked northern wall. Greenvale had nearly 5,000 residents, 14 days of food, one damaged gate, two public arguments scheduled before lunch, and a trade route occupied by enough enemies to require categories. I rode in the first supply wagon beside Oren's bridge timbers. If we returned without grain, the city would begin to starve. If we treated everyone on the road as an enemy, we might deserve to. The north road narrowed between birch-covered hills before it reached split pine. Spring rain had cut the old wheel ruts into shallow streams. Our wagons groaned over exposed roots while Oren complained from the lead cart that the original road builders had confused drainage with prayer. They asked water to leave, he said. They did not provide a direction. The first moonboar watched us from a field of torn earth. It stood nearly as tall as a horse at the shoulder, covered in gray bristles that reflected pale blue along the tips. Three smaller adults rooted behind it among the remains of a wagon. The largest animal lowered crescent tusks and scraped one hoof through the mud. Garrick raised a fist. The column stopped without shouting. Shields came down from wagon hooks. Archers moved to the flanks. No one charged. Lyru studied the animals through a brass field lens. No foam. No crystal growth. They're thin. Territorial, I said. Hungry, Tavi corrected. She pointed with two fingers rather than one, a caravan habit meant to look less threatening. The old salt meadow is east of here. If the toll fence blocks it, they would follow the road verge. Pip found the fence half a mile ahead, sharpened posts, blue chain marks, and a river gate lock across what had once been common grazing ground. We removed 3 sections and spread crushed salt beyond the ditch. The lead moonboar watched our cruise with tiny black eyes. When the wind carried the salt, its ears twitched. It turned away from our shield line and lumbered east, the others following through wet grass. The system gave me no points. That was fine. Not being trampled was its own reward. Split pine looked less reasonable. The toll post straddled the road behind a timber barrier. 12 armed men wore blue chain badges without Rivergate uniforms. Their captain sat beneath an awning beside a rate board painted with so many fees that traveling past it might have cost less than learning to read it. Road maintenance levy, he said when we approached. Oren looked at the mud around his boots. Where is the maintenance? The captain glanced down as if the road had betrayed him. North of here. Convenient. Mira inspected the toll writ. The seal belonged to a Rivergate merchant office, not the March Court. The authorization covered carts traveling toward Rivergate's eastern road and said nothing about closing the public north route. You have collected an illegal toll, she said. The captain's hand settled on his sword. Behind him, 2 men shifted toward the barrier winch. Garrick's shield line did not move. That made it more threatening. 80 disciplined soldiers could become quieter than 12 uncertain ones. We have protected this crossing for 2 years, the captain said. Pip leaned toward me. From travelers? The captain heard him. His face darkened. Greenvale recognizes lawful road service. I said before pride turned into blood. Present your accounts at our public hearing. If you maintain the road, the work will be valued. If you rob travelers, the claims will be repaid from your bond. What bond? The one I am requiring before you collect another copper. He looked from Seraphina's sun shield to Garrick's waiting formations, then to Mira, who had already opened a fresh page under the heading Split Pine Claims. The barrier rose. We found crates of red-fletched arrows in the rear storehouse. The captain insisted they had been seized from goblins. The oilcloth around them carried a Rivergate warehouse stamp. Mira recorded both facts. We left 10 guards to hold the post, protect witnesses, and prevent the toll men from discovering an urgent appointment elsewhere. By late afternoon, crystal growths appeared among the trees. They were clear as frozen water and clustered around roots in delicate fans. Sunlight passed through them in trembling rainbows. The beauty lasted until one of Oren's mules stepped too close. The roots moved. They snapped around the animal's foreleg and pulled hard enough to tip the wagon. Seraphina cut the largest vine with one clean stroke while Lyru threw a pouch of powdered bitter leaf across the crystal fans. They recoiled from the scent. Bramble trotted forward before anyone could stop him. His moss stripe glowed. He sniffed one crystal, sneezed, and began eating the pale fungus beneath it. The roots loosened. It is feeding through the fungal mat, Lyru said. Not hunting, defending its food. We marked a path with bitter leaf wash and lifted the road surface over the worst root clusters rather than burning the grove. Oren designed raised stone runners while muttering that even the plants in this region had opinions about traffic. We camped within sight of Whitewater at dusk. The river ran high and white between dark rocks. One bridge pier remained in the center, tilted but standing. Broken arches lay beneath the current. Red handprints covered hide shelters on the west bank. Smaller cooking fires glowed among stonework on the east. Pip's scouts found the ambush before supper. Red-fletched arrows struck from the birches. Our shield crews locked above the road while archers answered toward visible bow flashes, not shadows. Goblins rushed the rear wagon from a drainage cut, short figures in red-painted leather with hooked blades and hunger-sharp faces. Then the remaining bridge pier exploded with noise. A second group of goblins rose from inside the stonework and dropped ropes across the west bank path. 3 red knives tripped. A weighted timber swung from the pier and knocked 2 more into the shallows. The goblin on the rope shouted at us. "Tall fools. Left bank. Left bank unless you enjoy arrows in both eyes." He wore a patched ochrework coat instead of red armor. Olive green skin showed beneath a black topknot, and his broad pointed ears had brass measuring rings along the edges. His left hand was wrapped in dark leather stained by old burns. We moved left. Garrick pushed the red knives back without pursuing into the trees. Seraphina disarmed their leader and let him run when the remaining attackers scattered. 2 goblins lay wounded near the road. Lyru reached them before either side decided what their species required. The ochre-coated goblin crossed a temporary plank from the pier with 6 workers behind him. Each carried a hammer, saw, rope coil, or stone hook. He ignored me and went directly to the broken bridge. "Your wagon cracked the east approach," he said. Oren's eyebrows rose. "Your east approach was already cracked. Surface split. Now load split. Because someone removed the lower brace. Because red knife thieves burned it. Then it was cracked." The goblin's ears flattened. He was openly furious now. He struck the surviving stone with his wrapped hand. "Pier stands. Footing holds. Arch seat holds. Bridge is injured, not ruined." I looked at the torrent carrying pieces of the old road downstream. "It looks ruined." He turned on me so quickly that Seraphina's hand moved toward her sword. "You look tired," he snapped. "Are you dead?" Tavi made a strangled sound that might have been laughter. The goblin pointed at the pier. "Grusk Emberhand. Hearthclan bridgewright. That is our bridge. Red knives take toll. Rivergate gives arrows. Humans say all goblins close road. Then humans bring army to clear all goblins." Very tidy. His anger had structure. Every clipped word rested on something that had happened before we arrived. I looked across the river at the east bank fires. Small figures watched from behind stone screens. Some held weapons. Others held children. "We did not come to clear all goblins," I said. "You brought 80 shields. The road has many opinions." Warren snorted. Grusk's eyes narrowed. "You want bridge. Greenvale needs grain north of it. You need the red knives and illegal toll collectors gone. We need humans to stop deciding Hearthclan home is useful empty land. Then let us start with a contract that says it is not empty." Mira stepped forward with her ledger. Grusk stared at it with deep suspicion. "Paper is how Rivergate stole quarry." "Then you should help write this one," she said. His burned fingers flexed inside the leather wrap. "Your ink better be good. It is almost gone." For the first time, Grusk smiled. It showed too many pointed teeth and no softness at all. Then every word expensive. Hearthclan had lived at Whitewater for 43 years. They quarried river stone, repaired flood damage, and charged a small posted crossing fee when the bridge stood. Rivergate factors began diverting merchants east after Greenvale's mine closed. They hired Red Knife fighters to pressure the clan, then sold the same warband arrows and food through Split Pine. When Hearthclan refused to surrender its quarry, someone burned the lower bridge braces during spring flood. The Red Knives claimed the west bank and blamed every attack on bridge goblins. Rivergate collected the diverted tolls. It was a complicated plan for accomplishing ordinary theft. Grusk showed us the surviving foundation the next morning. He climbed over wet stone with the confidence of someone walking through his own kitchen. Burn scars covered his left palm and 2 fingers did not bend fully, but he could feel a change in the pier by striking it with a brass-headed hammer. Oren followed more slowly, studying each joint with the determined suspicion of a man who disliked being impressed. They argued about the arch angle, timber species, flood height, rope tension, and whether human builders had invented triangles. By midday, they had designed the same temporary bridge from opposite directions. 2 timber trusses, Oren said. 3, Grusk replied. 2 carry the load. 3rd carries mistake. Oren stared at him for a long moment. 3, he said. That was the closest thing to affection either of them offered. The agreement took longer. Hearthclan would retain its East Bank homes, quarry rights, and a share of posted bridge tolls. Greenvale would supply defense during reconstruction and recognize clan judgments in family and craft matters, provided serious crimes remained appealable under common road law. Hearthclan could become an allied road community, or its residents could register individually for Greenvale citizenship. Neither choice was permanent or forced. Grusk read every line aloud in his own language, then had Mira read it in ours. 3 elders pressed clay thumb seals beside our signatures. No Emerald System window appeared. Grusk still looked relieved when the copies matched. Construction began under arrow fire. The Red Knives tested us with quick attacks from the West Woods. Garrick organized rotating shield shelters over the saw crews. Pip's scouts hung little copper leaves on safe paths and black feathers where archers had been seen. Tavi managed wagons on both banks, using flat ferry rafts Hearthclan had hidden upstream. Lyrua's medical tent stood between camps. The first Hearthclan mother who brought a feverish child stopped at the entrance when she saw a human wounded inside. Lyru noticed and moved one pallet aside herself. "He can stay with you," she said. The mother touched 2 fingers to her forehead. "Humans put goblins sick outside. Then those humans were bad at medicine." The child recovered after 2 days of clean water and willow bark. By the 3rd, Hearthclan cooks were bringing Lyru pepper broth so strong that it cleared the noses of everyone in the tent. Greenvale's guards learned goblin names. Hearthclan workers learned which guards snored. The bridge grew across the river 1 measured piece at a time. We set the first truss with capstans on both banks. Wet rope groaned. Timber rose above the water, sunlight turning every spray droplet gold. Oren called corrections from the west abutment. Grusk stood on the surviving pier, coat snapping in the wind, signaling with his burned hand. The Red Knives attacked when the truss was halfway over. Arrows fell from the south ridge. A burning pot shattered against the timber. Garrick's shields closed around the capstan crews, but the west rope team broke formation when smoke rolled across them. The truss swung toward the current. "Hold it," Oren shouted. Grusk jumped from the pier onto the moving beam. He crawled along it above the river, hooked one leg through the braces, and cut away the burning sling. The structure dropped a handspan and slammed against the stone seat. The 3rd truss, the one meant to carry mistakes, caught the load. I threw my weight onto the west capstan beside farmers, guards, and 2 Hearthclan workers. The bar dug into my shoulder. Mud slid under our boots. Seraphina led a short countercharge up the ridge, not to chase the attackers, but to clear the archers from range. Her white and gold armor flashed between birches. She returned with 3 prisoners and no unnecessary bodies. By sunset, the first span stood. Grusk crossed before anyone declared it safe. Oren watched every joint as the goblin reached the west bank. "It will hold," he said. "I know," Grusk replied. "I was telling the bridge." Hearthclan lit cook fires along both approaches. Greenvale workers brought out the remaining sunwheat loaves. Someone produced a clay drum. Someone else found a fiddle with only 3 strings. The music was terrible. The celebration was not. The system finally opened. Regional alliance recognized. Shared infrastructure established. Prosperity points awarded for voluntary cooperation, public access, and durable trade capacity. I closed the window without drawing. Across the fire, Grusk was teaching Pip a goblin not used to lower workers beneath an arch. Pip's small fingers followed each loop with fierce concentration. Garrick watched from close enough to intervene and far enough to pretend he was not hovering. The bridge had not chosen a side. People on both sides had chosen to finish it. The missing wagon vanished on the 4th morning. It carried barley, dried peas, bridge spikes, and 2 barrels of lamp oil. The drivers were found beside the road with their wrists tied in soft rope. Neither was wounded. An orc claim token sat on the driver's chest. It was a flat piece of red cedar carved with a broken tusk above 3 ash trees. On the back, Someone had marked 5 sacks of barley, 3 sacks of peas, and 1 barrel of oil. They only took 1 barrel, Tavi said. Accurate thieves. Garrick turned the token over. Professional raiders record shares. It prevents their own people from stealing from the theft. Comforting, Mira said. The tracks led northwest into dry pine country. Garrick wanted to send scouts and wait for the full column. The drivers said 12 riders had taken the wagon. I chose 20 mounted guards, Serafina, Tavi, Pip's adult scout captain, and myself. Pip objected. I found the trail, which is why Captain Jorin can follow it. I am better than Jorin. Jorin, standing beside him, nodded. He is. You are also 11, I said. Pip crossed his arms. His lower lip pushed forward before he caught it. A child's reaction fighting the scout he wanted to become. Founders train replacements, I reminded him. Map every side trail while we are gone. That is an order worth trusting. He did not like it. He obeyed. The orcs let us follow them. Their tracks were too clear, branches cut at shoulder height, and hoofprints pressed deep into soft ground. At midday we found our empty wagon beside a stone circle. The missing oil barrel stood unopened in the center. A tall orc woman waited beside it. Korguh Ash Tusk wore rust-red lamellar armor beneath a gray-brown fur mantle. Her skin was muted moss green, darker along her forearms. Black hair hung in practical braids, and the left tusk at her mouth ended shorter than the right. An axe rested against the stone within reach, but not in her hands. 11 outriders watched from the trees. So did several children. That changed the shape of the encounter. Lord of Greenvale, Korguh said. Her human speech was careful and heavily accented. You came with less than an army. You stole less than a full wagon. I assumed we were both being restrained. Tavi coughed into one fist. Korguh studied me, then gave a short bark of laughter. 5 sacks barley, 3 peas. Wool was wrong. We need tallow. You could have asked. Her amusement vanished. She stepped closer, and I saw how tired she was. Dust had settled in the lines beside her eyes. One leather strap on her armor had been repaired with twine. Asked Westmere, she said. Lord Vane closed Winter Road. Asked Rivergate. They demanded children as bond. Asked Red Knives. They killed Messenger and wore his teeth. Her right hand closed slowly around the broken tusk token hanging at her neck. Humans call it raid when orc takes grain. What call when Lord takes valley and leaves families hungry? Attacks, usually, I said, which does not make it better. Korguh's outriders shifted. One smiled. She led us beyond the stone circle. 40 orc families camped beneath the pines. Their hide tents were packed for movement, but 3 wagons had broken axles and many horses showed ribs. Older people tended smoking racks with almost no meat on them. Children wore carved family beads and watched our green uniforms with open suspicion. The Ash Tusk clan had followed the same winter passage for generations, trading hide, ironwork, and horse stock through the northern valleys. Vane's new fort cut the route. His soldiers killed 2 outriders and drove the clan east into Red Knife territory. Korguh had raided because she had run out of roads. That did not make the wagon hers. We negotiated beside a low fire that smelled of pine resin and bitter tea. Greenvale would sell grain at the public emergency rate, accept hides and horse care as partial payment, and recognize Ash Tusk passage between Whitewater and the eastern hills. The clan would stop unauthorized seizures, provide road patrols against Red Knives, and submit disputes involving Greenvale travelers to a mixed hearing. Korguh wanted enough grain for a month. We had 12 days at home. I can release 10 sacks now, I said. More after the first northern caravan crosses. Her nostrils flared. My children eat, promise? Mine do too if the road fails. She stood. Anger made her shoulders rise beneath the fur mantle. Several outriders moved toward their weapons. Serafina did not draw. She simply turned her shield so its sun emblem caught the light. Korguh looked toward the thinnest horses, then back at me. 10 now. 20 from first caravan. 15, if your riders help it cross. 18, and you return the bridge spikes. Her shortened tusk lifted with a reluctant smile. 17, spikes were poor iron. Garrick asked to speak with me before we sealed it. We stepped beyond the firelight while Korguh waited beside her outriders. You are granting an armed clan passage beside a road we cannot yet hold, he said. If they break this agreement, our grain and our eastern flank fail together. If we refuse, they keep raiding because every legal route is closed. Understanding the cause does not remove the risk. No, it tells us which promise might change it. His jaw set. You are wagering the city on people you met an hour ago. I am wagering 10 sacks and a supervised road. You are commanding the patrol that watches whether they keep their word. Garrick looked back at the thin horses, the children near the tents, and Corguh standing where we could see her weapon remained against the stone. I disagree, he said. I know. And if she betrays us, I close the passage. If she betrays us, you close it. He returned to the fire without pretending agreement had become trust. Oren will be devastated. We clasped forearms. Corguh's grip was strong enough to make my fingers tingle. She returned 4 sacks of barley and 1 of peas from the stolen stores. The rest became the first payment under a witnessed agreement. Mira later informed me that this distinction mattered in the ledger. It mattered more when Corguh's outriders rode beside us toward Whitewater. The Red Knives had expected humans, goblins, and orcs to remain separate problems. We were becoming one of theirs. We did not defeat the Red Knives in one battle. We made raiding stop working. Pip's scouts mapped their water points and hidden paths. Hearthclan workers built false bridge ramps that could drop beneath charging feet without collapsing the real structure. Corguh's outriders cut off messengers and returned stolen livestock. Garrick moved supply camps every night and placed archers where the warband expected cook fires. Tavi sent 2 empty caravans north under heavy guard, and the real grain wagons south at dawn behind a herd of ash-tusk horses. The Red Knives attacked the empty carts. By the time they realized the mistake, Greenvale's first grain shipment was already crossing Whitewater. Their leader made one final attempt at the bridge. Rusk Redhand wore layered leather painted with overlapping crimson palms. He brought nearly 100 fighters from the West Woods, some willing, some gone enough that willingness was difficult to judge. He shouted that Hearthclan had sold goblin land to humans. Grusk stood on the completed first span with his burned hand resting on the rail. You sold goblin arrows to human thieves, he shouted back. Land remembers who repairs it. Rusk charged. The battle lasted less than an hour. Garrick's shields held the west approach. Hearthclan slingers struck from protected stone bays they had built into the abutment. Corguh's riders emerged from the southern trees and closed the retreat toward Split Pine. Serafina met Rusk at the center of the span. She could have killed him in the first exchange. Instead, she broke his hooked sword, struck him to one knee with the rim of her shield, and offered surrender. He spat at her boots. Behind him, Red Knife fighters began dropping weapons anyway. Rusk looked back and saw that fear had stopped holding his army together. His rage collapsed into something smaller. He surrendered. The hearings took 2 days. Hearthclan witnesses identified murders, burned homes, and extortion. Split Pine records linked Rusk's lieutenants to Rivergate stores. Some fighters had joined for food or protection. Others had personally tortured travelers. We judged acts, not ears. Rusk and the proven killers went to the March Court under guard. Coerced fighters entered supervised work, returned to families, or accepted Hearthclan judgment. No one received citizenship as a reward for surrender. No one was denied the chance to earn it because a red handprint had once been painted on their coat. Then we opened the road properly. Oren and Grusk finished the second span. Raised stone runners carried wagons past the crystal roots. Salt meadows drew Moonboars away from traffic. Split Pine became a bonded public station with posted tolls, receipts, and appeal rules. We built depots a half-day's travel apart with clean wells, signal baskets, and lock seals numbered in Mira's ledgers. The first northern grain caravan contained 26 wagons. I stood beside the repaired Greenvale gate when it appeared on the ridge. People crowded the wall, roofs, and drainage banks. The fortified town behind them had changed in the 17 days since we left. New timber frames covered the eastern field. Colored ward cloths marked kitchens and clinics. Stone lined the busiest channels. Smoke rose from kilns, smithies, and a dozen kinds of cooking fires. The city did not exist by charter yet. It existed because too many people were already living like it did. The wagons rolled through the gate beneath green and gold banners. Hearthclan guards walked beside Greenvale shields. Corguh's outriders escorted the rear. Tavi rode on the first wagon with both arms raised, her copper tail streaming behind her. The square erupted. Helsa cried openly when the first grain sacks reached the public store. Marinholt pressed both hands to one and stood there with his eyes closed. Lyru laughed as children followed Bramble around a spilled trail of peas. Mira broke the celebration by ordering every sack weighed before storage. That saved us later. For now, I opened the system. Regional trade route established. Population, 5,412. Food stability, 46. Security, 58. Prosperity, 51. Shared road citizenship recognized. New objective, prove Greenvale's regional standing at the Tournament of Banners. City charter hearing available upon qualification. 3 invitation seals appeared beneath the notice. Westmere, Rivergate, Highwatch. Mira looked over my shoulder. Those are the 3 territories that profited from the road being closed. Yes. And they invited us to compete for control of the road we just opened. Also yes. She rubbed the ink stain on her hand. I preferred dysentery. It was more direct. Across the square, Grusk and Oren were arguing about the North Gate arch. Korguh was showing Garrick a better saddle knot. Tavi had climbed onto a grain wagon to organize unloading before joy became inefficiency. The road was open. Now the people who had closed it wanted to decide whether we deserved it. The Tournament of Banners occupied a field outside the March Court every spring. The name suggested knights, cheering crowds, and heroic speeches. The actual rules filled 63 pages. Mira loved it. Bridge crossing, supply control, casualty recovery, route finding, formation drill, mounted relay, and champions bout, she said, spreading the event book across our council table. Points deducted for lost equipment, injured participants, broken wagons, wasted provisions, late arrival, and falsified counts. Garrick leaned over her shoulder. So it tests whether an army can remain an army after leaving home. Apparently someone at court once noticed wars require roads. We could take 100 competitors and 40 support staff. Garrick chose guards by discipline rather than size. Lyru selected healers who could work in moving wagons. Oren and Grusk each named 6 engineers, argued over the overlap, and ended with a team of 8 because 4 people appeared on both lists. Tavi organized couriers and caravan handlers. Pip chose the scout route teams, with Captain Jorin assigned to every group that included anyone under 16. Serafina entered the champions bout. That seems unfair, I said. The rules allow 1 sworn retainer. I meant to everyone else. She considered that. They may surrender. The March Court field lay 3 days east beyond rolling farms and old stone watch posts. Our column arrived under green banners bearing the gold wheat leaf above the silver foundation stone. Westmere had built silk awnings around its camp. Its cavalry horses matched in color, tack, and apparent awareness of their expense. Gold sheaves snapped above polished grain wagons. Rivergate's camp sat beside the stream behind blue-painted fences. Merchant factors wore chain-shaped silver badges and counted every visitor who crossed their carpets. Highwatch had no carpets. Its black tower banners stood in ruler straight lines above heavy infantry tents. Soldiers cleaned identical armor beside identical cook fires. Greenvale brought patched wagons, goblin bridge braces, an orc saddle crew, human farmers in standardized gambesons, beastkin couriers, and 1 mossback grazer who had climbed into the supply cart while no one watched. Bramble emerged carrying a turnip. The camps nearest us went quiet. Lord Torrenbale inspected our column from horseback. He was a thick-necked man in his late 40s with iron-gray hair cut close and black plate built for use rather than display. His gaze paused on Garrick's uneven stance, Grusk's ears, Korguh's shortened tusk, and finally Bramble. Greenvale brought livestock to a military contest, he said. Garrick looked at Bramble. He has survived more sieges than half the officers here. Several Highwatch soldiers tried not to smile. Lord Howrick Vane did not try. He laughed openly. Vane was narrow and pale, dressed in wheat gold velvet despite the damp field. Rings flashed across both hands. He had the soft appearance of a man who controlled food by controlling paper and therefore rarely carried either. Ashford, he said to me, I heard your town had become a refugee camp. I did not realize the camp had become your army. Tavi's tail went stiff. Korguh watched him with the stillness of a drawn bow. Most armies are made of people, I said. It saves on horses. Lady Kasha Morkan approached before Vane found an answer. She wore Rivergate blue beneath a charcoal riding cloak, silver hair braided close to her head, and a pleasant expression that never reached her dark eyes. She was perhaps 45 and moved with the quiet assurance of someone who had read every dead in the room. "Lord Rowan," she said, "congratulations on reopening Whitewater. Rivergate regrets the regrettable conduct of several independent factors. The factors carrying Rivergate warehouse arrows. Counterfeit marks are distressingly common." Mira opened her ledger. Morcant noticed and smiled at her. "You must be the new clerk, chief recorder for this delegation." "Of course. Titles grow quickly in new settlements." Mira's expression remained professionally empty. Only the stylus between her fingers stopped moving. Morcant turned back to me. "Win the tournament. Present your charter claim. Let the marches see what Greenvale has become." It sounded like encouragement. It felt like someone opening a door over a pit. The first event began at dawn. Each delegation had to move 2 loaded wagons, a shield unit, and a medical cart across a damaged practice bridge. Westmere sent cavalry engineers ahead and finished quickly, but one wagon cracked an axle on the far ramp. Highwatch laid heavy planks and marched in perfect order. Rivergate paid the event carpenters for advance measurements, which was apparently legal because the rules had not anticipated shame. Greenvale arrived last at the bridge. Grusk struck the supports with his brass hammer. Oren inspected the ramp. They spoke for less than a minute. Then our crews unloaded half the first wagon, lashed its cargo beneath the second, and converted the empty chassis into a support frame under the weak span. Core GUH's horse handlers moved the teams separately. Garrick crossed the shields in groups of 6 instead of a full block. Lyrua's cart went last over the brace center line. We were not fastest. We were the only delegation that crossed with no damaged equipment, no injured animal, and the bridge stronger than we found it. The judges awarded full preservation points and a public road bonus no one had noticed in Appendix 8. Mira had noticed. The tournament continued for 4 days. We lost the cavalry sprint badly. Core GUH's outriders were fast over broken terrain, but Westmere's bred coursers devoured the flat track. Vane bowed from his pavilion as if he had personally grown the horses. We placed second in formation drill behind Highwatch. Garrick's mixed companies moved cleanly, but one new cohort reacted slowly to a horn change. He accepted the deduction without blaming the recruits. We won casualty recovery. Lyrua's teams triaged colored wound markers, stabilized practice patients, and moved them through narrow ground without dropping shields or supplies. When a Real spectator collapsed from heat near the course, she diverted one team without asking whether saving him would cost points. It did. The head judge restored them after the crowd began shouting. By the night navigation event, Greenvale stood 3rd overall. Pip found the false marker before it sent our scouts into a flooded ravine. It looked like an event ribbon tied to an alder branch. The knot was correct. The cloth was correct. The wax on the numbered tag carried the wrong scent. Rivergate seal wax uses cedar oil, he told Captain Jorin. "This smells like lamp pitch." He did not pull it down. He marked the location, sent an adult runner, and kept his team on the verified route. The judges found 2 more false markers. One pointed toward a Highwatch patrol and might have caused armed teams to collide in darkness. Morcant expressed shock beautifully. Mira recorded that too. The final day tested every part of the delegation at once. We had to move a grain convoy across 6 miles of marked country, locate 2 hidden signal posts, repel a padded weapon ambush, establish a field camp, account for every ration, and present one champion at the central ring before sunset. Westmere launched first in a cloud of gold pennants and dust. Highwatch marched second like a black iron door. Rivergate took the river route in shallow barges. Greenvale stopped after 1 mile. The judges stared as Oren ordered our lead wagon dismantled. One wool hub had begun to split. The damage was small enough to survive the course and large enough to fail later with a full load. Vane's column disappeared over the hill while our carpenters fitted a spare hub. "We are losing," one guard muttered. Garrick heard him. "We are repairing." Different word. We moved again 12 minutes later. Tavi's couriers found both signal posts by reading traffic rather than chasing the event's obvious tracks. Core GUH's riders located Rivergate's abandoned supply sacks beside the water route and reported them instead of claiming them. Pip's team spotted the ambushers through bird movement in the hedges. Garrick did not charge. He sent 2 shield files along the road while Grusk's engineers opened an old drainage gate behind the ambush position. Our padded attackers found their retreat occupied by 8 wet goblins and Orin carrying a mallet he had been specifically told not to use on anyone. They surrendered to the shields. At the field camp station, Highwatch had arrived first, but placed its water line downhill from the horse picket. We arrived second and moved upstream. Lyru marked treatment lanes. Mira counted sealed ration bags. Hearthclan crews built cooked trenches that drew smoke away from the tents. Westmere arrived without one supply wagon. The cracked axle from the first event had been replaced too quickly. Its rear wheel failed in the hills. Vane reached the champion's ring before us anyway by abandoning the wagon and half his support crew. His knight wore gold-edged plate and carried a blunted two-handed sword. The crowd cheered when he entered. Seraphina walked into the ring after ensuring our last medical cart had reached camp. Her white and gold armor bore road dust. Her blue half-cape had a repaired tear near the shoulder. She looked less decorative than Vane's champion and far more awake. The bout began. The knight attacked with enough force to drive her back 2 steps. He was skilled, fast, and trying very hard to end the contest before anyone noticed he was afraid of her. Seraphina tested his guard for 3 exchanges. Then she saw the broken buckle beneath his right shoulder plate. Her next strike stopped a finger's width before the joint. The knight had overcommit. A full blow would have driven the damaged plate into his neck. Seraphina turned the sword, hooked his wrist, and disarmed him instead. The crowd went silent before it cheered. She offered him his weapon hilt first. "Repair the buckle," she said. Greenvale won the champion's bout on control, not injury. At sunset, every delegation opened its inventory. Westmere was missing 1 wagon, 9 ration sacks, and 3 support staff who arrived after dark furious at being left behind. Rivergate's abandoned supplies cost enough preservation points to erase its river speed. Highwatch had every item, but lost medical and camp sanitation marks. Greenvale had 1 used wheel hub, 2 torn bandages, and a turnip that Bramble had moved between wagons without authorization. Mira listed the turnip. We won by 11 points. It did not look heroic. No enemy standard fell. No sword blazed with divine light. We repaired a wheel, boiled water, counted peas, followed verified markers, and brought everyone home. The March Court crowd understood anyway. People who had laughed at our mixed delegation now leaned over the rails to see Grusk's bridge model and Corguh's saddle rig. Highwatch soldiers asked Garrick about rotating shield rests for veterans with old injuries. He answered without pretending his leg did not hurt. The presiding magistrate handed me 2 sealed writs. The first granted Greenvale Regional Protection Authority over the North Road, subject to public toll limits and annual review. The second scheduled our city charter hearing in 40 days. Vane's face had gone bloodless beneath his pavilion. Morcon applauded with careful fingertips. Bale did neither. He studied our delegation as if it had become a different military problem. Seraphina stood beside me while the green and gold banner rose above the field. Solaris held tournaments, she said. They became displays for noble houses. Logistics were servants' work. Did Solaris win its final wars? Her blue eyes lowered. No. Grief moved across her face with almost no change in expression. Her hand tightened once around the leather grip of her son's shield. Then we keep servants' work in the score, I said. She looked toward our camp, where Mira was making the judges sign a receipt for the turnip. Perhaps, Seraphina said, Greenvale should not become Solaris. It was the first time she had said that without sounding as if the thought hurt. Greenvale welcomed us home with 6 new workshops, 2 public ovens, an expanded clinic, and a market argument about fermented cabbage. The city had changed while we were gone. The eastern shelter rows now had timber walls and raised plank walks above the mud. Dwarven stonecutters shaped foundation blocks beside Hearthclan masons. Elven growers trained beans up the sunny sides of the bathhouse frame Orin had finally approved. Tavi's caravan families hung copper bells over their doors so children could find the right lane after dark. Market stalls sold sun wheat bread beside pepperroot stew, smoked riverfish, dwarf salt cakes, and goblin mushroom skewers that turned Garrick's eyes red for 10 minutes. He finished all 3. The North Road had brought grain, iron, cloth, lamp oil, medicine, and people who wanted to buy Greenvale silver. It also brought opportunities to steal more efficiently. The first shortage appeared in Ward 4. Its kitchen reported receiving 20 sacks of barley and serving 15. The store ledger claimed all 20 had been issued. 5 sacks had become numbers without becoming food. Mira checked the seal stubs. They matched. Then Ward 2 lost lamp oil. The clinic received diluted honey. A carpenter presented a public contract for roof beams at twice the posted price, signed with my name. The signature looked better than mine. Marin Holt brought the forged contract to me with both hands shaking. People say the newcomers are taking it, he said. Others say the first families are hiding stores. There was a fight by the East Kitchen. Who started it? Everyone will tell you someone else. We inspected the central storehouse before announcing an investigation. Rows of grain sacks stood beneath a clean timber roof. Mira's numbered wax seals remained on the doors and loft hatches. 2 watch officers held the only recorded keys. Bramble waddled inside behind Lyru. He sniffed the nearest seal, sneezed, and backed away so quickly that his round body struck a flour barrel. The moss stripe along his back darkened. Lyru crouched beside him. Corrupted mana. Very faint. Mira held the seal near the window. It looked like our emerald wax, but tiny violet grains caught the light. Can he identify who used it? She asked. No, I said. He identifies things he should not eat, which is a much shorter list than you might expect. Bramble bit the corner of a clean grain tag to prove the point. The tainted wax was a clue, not a verdict. Mira ordered every seal compared. 7 contained violet crystal dust. All 7 protected stores that had reported shortages. Someone had copied the seal pattern and used mine residue to mimic the system's emerald shimmer. Pelharo arrived while we were still collecting samples. He wore a dark green coat this time, close enough to Greenvale's colors to suggest belonging without earning it. His expression shifted into concern when he saw the opened records. A terrible business, he said. My factors heard rumors of ration theft. I came to offer private guards. Mira's stylus paused. Your factors hear quickly. Markets survive on information. People survive on grain. His eyes cooled for half a second. And grain survives under competent management. Lord Rowan cannot personally inspect every sack in a growing city. He was right. That did not make him helpful. Public stores remain under public keys, I said. Submit any evidence to Mira. Of course. Pell bowed and left. Bramble watched him go, then returned to eating the clean tag. No magical reaction. People were capable of being dishonest without corruption magic. That made them harder to sort. The first arrest would have been easy. Tavi's ward stamp appeared on 3 false ration orders. 1 missing oil barrel was found beneath a caravan shelter used by her cousins. A watch clerk swore he had seen her leave the central store after midnight. By breakfast, people were demanding she be removed from the ward council. Tavi stood in the hearing room with her arms locked across her chest. Her copper ears lay flat against her auburn hair. Anger showed in every rigid line of her body, but fear kept breaking through whenever the crowd outside shouted her name. I did not sign those, she said. Mira placed the orders beside one of Tavi's real forms. The marks looked identical. The stamp is yours, Mira said. It disappeared 2 weeks ago. I reported it. To whom? Tavi named the watch clerk who claimed to have seen her at the store. That was useful. It was not innocence. You are suspended from store access while we investigate, I said. Not removed from the council. Not imprisoned. Someone outside shouted that I protected beastkin thieves. Tavi flinched as if struck. Then her eyes narrowed at me. If I were human, would you suspend me? With the same evidence, yes. If I were one of the 37? Yes. You say that easily. I hope I never prove it. Her tail lowered, though her shoulders remained tight. Find who used my name. We will. Pip began with the witness. The watch clerk, Dane Mercer, had served Greenvale since Malkin's surrender. His night logs were neat. Too neat. Every inspection happened exactly on the half hour, even during a rainstorm that had forced 3 guards to move roof tarps. Pip asked how Dane saw Tavi leave the store. Moonlight, he said. There had been no moon that night. Cloud records from Lyrua's fever ward confirmed heavy rain until dawn. Dane changed his story to lantern light. Mira changed the interview from witness statement to formal caution. We traced the oil barrel next. It had never held public oil. The Cooper's mark belonged to Pell's warehouse. Someone placed it beneath Tavi's shelter after the shortage. Mud on its base contained pale river clay not found in the eastern ward. Pip and Captain Jorin followed wagon tracks to a rented dye house beside the south channel. Inside they found carved stamp blocks, tainted wax, blank ration tokens, Rivergate message paper, and enough violet crystal dust to make Bramble refuse the doorway. They also found a frightened copyist named Annabelle. Anna was 19. Ink covered her fingers to the second knuckle. Pell's factor had paid her to copy store orders after threatening to report her father's old tax debt to Rivergate. She knew the documents were false. She did not know they supported spies. Mira interviewed her for 3 hours with Lyru present. Names emerged. Dane opened stores and changed watch logs. 2 warehouse porters moved sacks beneath waste canvas. A ration clerk duplicated family claims. Paid speakers started fights in crowded kitchens and blamed whichever group had not received the missing food. Pell's factors bought stolen grain through shell contracts, then sold it back to Greenvale at a premium. The theft funded messages to Lady Morcott. Those messages contained guard rotations, road depot inventories, Hearthclan bridge measurements, Corps GUH's patrol schedules, and the date of our charter hearing. Pell did not wait for arrest. He tried to leave through the south gate in a flour wagon. Marin recognized the horses. Tavi recognized the driver. Garrick's guards found Pell beneath 12 empty sacks wearing a laborer's coat over very expensive boots. The public hearing lasted 2 days. I wanted it public because rumors had already chosen guilt by species, neighborhood, and old allegiance. Evidence needed to travel faster. Mira presented the ledgers. Pip explained the weather contradiction and tracks. Lyru identified the crystal dust in the wax. Enna testified behind a screen by choice. Tavi showed the report she filed when her stamp vanished. Pell listened with his hands folded. When it was his turn, he stood and looked around the packed square. Greenvale is growing beyond Lord Rowan's competence, he said. I moved supplies where markets valued them. I paid information that every prudent merchant collects. Without men like me, this refugee camp collapses the first time charity ends. He sounded almost reasonable. That had always been his best disguise. You removed food from public kitchens, I said, then paid people to blame hungry neighbors. I created price signals. Tavi's nails dug into the table. Marin's face reddened. Outside the hearing rail, old residents and newcomers grew angry together. You created empty bowls, I said. The court can use the shorter phrase. Pell's composure cracked. His mouth pulled thin. You think published prices and goblin bridges make a city? The nobles surrounding you have generations of law, blood, and force. You have ledgers written by refugees. Mira closed the evidence book. Accurate ledgers, she said. Pell was convicted of organized theft, forgery, bribery, and espionage. Dane and the willing factors received sentences based on their acts. Coerced clerks testified, repaid what they could, and entered supervised service rather than cells. Tavi's suspension ended in the same public record that announced it. She returned to the ward council carrying a replacement stamp with a locking cover. I hate this thing, she told Mira. Good. Important tools should inspire caution. Do you hate your ledgers? Mira looked at her as if she had insulted Lyrua's clinic. Do not be childish. The crowd laughed. The sound released something that had been held tight for days. We had found the people stealing inside our walls. We had also found the weakness that let them do it. Too much of Greenvale still depended on the right person being awake. We changed the store system before Pell's sentence ink dried. Every public warehouse received 3 keys held by different offices. 2 were required to open a door. Seal numbers were assigned after loading, not before. Ward delegates posted daily receipts where residents could read them. Prices, wages, ration changes, and emergency exceptions went on to public boards in plain language. Mira formed an inspector's office that reported to the court and rotated staff between wards. Tavi insisted that at least one inspector in every team come from outside the neighborhood being checked. Marin added that no team should inspect its own family store. Enna, the coerced copyist, designed documents harder to forge. People complained about the extra steps immediately. That meant the controls were touching real work. I tried to attend every meeting. For 6 days, I moved from Dawn Gate reports to kitchen counts, bridge messages, charter drafts, court appeals, guard briefings, and construction inspections. I ate standing up. Twice I woke with my head on Mira's council table. On the seventh evening, Lyru found me climbing the north watchtower to inspect a cracked rain gutter. "Get down," she said. I looked over the rail. She stood below in her moss-green dress and brown apron, hands planted on her hips. "It is a gutter." "Yes. That is why the Lord of Greenvale does not need to inspect it after dark. Water is running behind the brace." Orin knows. "I should make sure. Get down." Her voice stayed level. Her anger did not. Even from the ladder, I could see the tension in her shoulders and the way her fingers pressed into the apron fabric. I climbed down. Lyru waited until my boots touched mud. "When did you last sleep in a bed?" "That depends on whether the archive bench qualifies." "It does not." "Then I object to the wording of the question." She did not smile. "You built councils, captains, ward delegates, clerks, inspectors, and a marshal because one man cannot watch a city. Then you run behind all of them, checking whether they deserve the trust you already gave." The words landed harder because she was right. "Pella used gaps," I said. "So fix the gaps. Do not fill everyone with your body." Rain tapped against the palisade. Beyond us, Greenvale glowed with hundreds of lamps. Hammers sounded from the new gate arch. Hearth-clan children chased each other along a raised walkway. A dwarf baker closed his shutters while a human apprentice carried out tomorrow's flour. None of them waited for me. Lyrua's anger faded into worry. "That was worse. I watched you stop breathing once," she said quietly. "I will not stand beside you while you practice." For a moment, I was back on an earth street beneath white headlights, pushing a child out of the road because my own life seemed like the easier thing to spend. I had brought that habit into another world and dressed it as responsibility. "I am sorry," I said. Her eyes shone, but she blinked the wetness away before it fell. "Good. Be sorry indoors." I delegated the gutter to Orin, who had already repaired it. Mira took the charter documents. Garrick took the night brief. Tavi took ward complaints. Lyru took me to the clinic kitchen and put stew in front of me. We sat beside the open window while rain washed the new stone channels. She loosened her braid. I removed the Lord's mantle and hung it over the chair. For 1 hour, neither of us solved anything. Her hand rested on the table between us. Mine touched it by accident, then stayed. She looked down at our fingers and back at me. Warmth rose into her face, visible even in the dim kitchen light. "You are still going to the charter hearing," she said. "Probably. After sleeping." That condition seems unrelated. Her fingers tightened around mine. "Try the answer again." "After sleeping." She smiled. The city continued outside without us for one quiet evening. That was not abandonment. It was proof that we had built more than dependence. The first offer arrived in a gold-painted grain wagon. Westmere's envoy entered Greenvale beneath a silk canopy while workers on the north gate were lifting a stone lintel into place. He waited for the hammering to stop. Orin did not stop. The envoy raised his voice over the mallets. Lord Howrick Vane would guarantee Greenvale 5 years of grain at a favorable rate. In return, Westmere would receive permanent ownership of our western fields, control of all seed distribution, and authority to appoint a stability advisor to the city council. Marin Holt read the terms twice. His weathered face tightened. "He closed the winter road," Marin said. "Now he offers to sell us the hunger he made." "At a favorable rate," Mira said. The envoy frowned. Lord Vane's generosity should not be mistaken for weakness. "We mistook it for arithmetic," she replied. I refused in writing and attached our evidence that Westmere troops had blocked Ash Tusk Passage and purchased emergency grain before closing village markets. The second offer arrived on blue paper sealed with a silver chain. Lady Cassia Morcant would recognize our city charter, provide river access, and forgive the crimes of Pell Harrow's network as unauthorized commercial enthusiasm. Greenvale would grant Rivergate exclusive control of whitewater tolls, silver exports, bridge insurance, and merchant licensing. Grusk read the bridge clause aloud in Hearthclan's meeting hall. His ears lowered a little further with every sentence. "She wants bridge without burning it this time," he said. "Growth," I said. He bared his teeth. "I will show growth when I build Toll House on her dining table." We declined more formally than Grusk preferred. The third offer marched through the gate in black armor. Highwatch's envoy was a colonel, not a courtier. He placed Lord Torrin Bale's proposal on the council table and stood with his hands behind his back. Highwatch would absorb Greenvale's guard, recognize Garrick as a senior captain, retain Seraphina as an honored champion, and protect the settlement from the instability spreading through Lemuria. In exchange, I would surrender military command, road authority, and territorial judgment. Non-human fighting units would disarm and register as labor auxiliaries until their loyalty was established. Guh sat very still across the table. One thumb rubbed the smooth break in her shortened tusk. Garrick finished reading before he looked up. Vale offers me the rank I held 20 years ago, he said. The colonel shifted. Lord Bale honors experience. Then he should recognize what I learned since. Serafina pushed the proposal back. My honor is not transferable property. The colonel looked at me. He was visibly uncomfortable now, though his training held his shoulders square. My lord, Highwatch has 1,200 professional soldiers. Greenvale has refugees in uniforms and road allies whose promises will not survive a real war. Lord Bale is offering survival. He is offering to decide who gets to survive as a citizen. He is offering order. Outside the council windows, a Hearthclan stone crew worked beside former Thornwatch soldiers. Tavi argued with a human drover over wagon priority. 2 Ash Tusk riders carried a sick dwarf toward Lyrua's clinic because their horses were fastest. It was noisy, imperfect, and ordered by promises people had actually agreed to. No, I said. The colonel's jaw tightened. He saluted Garrick before leaving. That small courtesy worried me more than a threat. All 3 offers had arrived within 2 days. Mira placed the documents side by side. Vane wanted our fields. Morkant wanted our road and trade. Bale wanted our army and law. They divided Greenvale before asking, she said. Pip's scouts confirmed it that evening. A courier intercepted near Split Pine carried a draft partition agreement. Westmere would administer farmland and grain. Rivergate would take the mine contracts, bridge tolls, and merchant quarter. Highwatch would occupy the walls and place the remaining population under military rule. The document described Hearthclan as removable squatters, Ash Tusk families as hostile migrants, and Greenvale's refugees as labor reserves. It was dated 12 days before the first offer. The charter hearing had never been their preferred outcome. The offers were evidence that we refused rescue. The partition was the rescue they planned to impose. The coalition did not declare war. It declared inspections. Westmere stopped grain wagons for seed health reviews. Rivergate impounded barges over disputed toll bonds. Highwatch patrols occupied 2 hill crossings to prevent unauthorized military movement. Merchants received letters warning that Greenvale contracts might become invalid after the charter hearing. Then an outer depot burned. The fire started after midnight at North Marker 3. The crew saved the well and half the stores, but the roof collapsed over 30 sacks of barley. A green and gold cloth was found tied around a fleeing saboteur's arm. Too new, too clean. The wheat leaf had 6 veins instead of 5. Someone wanted the attack to look internal. Rumors moved faster than facts. Human wards accused Hearthclan. Goblin families heard that Greenvale planned arrests. Ash Tusk riders found Black Tower tokens near a slaughtered horse and assumed Highwatch wanted retaliation. We posted the false banner beside the approved one in every ward. 5 veins, not 6. Mira published the courier's partition agreement and every offer. Tavi's couriers carried copies to allied villages. Grusk read the clauses about Hearthclan aloud at Whitewater. Guh sent the Ash Tusk description to every clan family. The coalition had written its own answer to the rumor campaign. It still had more soldiers. Garrick turned the tournament cohort into the core of a professional army. Greenvale's guard split into mixed battalions built around experienced shield files, archers, engineers, and wagon crews. Former Thornwatch soldiers trained beside refugees who had once fled them. Hearthclan sappers taught bridge denial and rapid repair. Ash Tusk outriders trained scouts to read open ground at speed. Pip wanted his youngest route finders attached to forward companies. No one under 16 beyond the depot line, I said. They are smaller. They hide better, which is useful inside the city. His amber eyes flashed. You let me scout battles when there were only 37 of us. I had fewer choices and worse judgment. I was good enough then. You were brave enough. Those are not the same thing. He looked ready to shout. Then his gaze moved to the new scouts waiting behind him. 3 children who copied the way he held his shoulders. Pip saw them seeing him. His anger changed shape. Jorin commands outside the depot line, he said. I command signals inside. Agreed. And I review every map. Every map. He left muttering that lords became unreasonable when settlements grew. Lyru expanded the clinic into 3 field hospital companies. Each carried white ward cloth, boiled bandages, splints, willow bark, clean water stones, and patient tags designed by Anna. Enemy wounded would receive the same triage categories. Some people will object, I said. Lyru tied a bundle of bandages hard enough to make the cloth snap. Then they may object after the bleeding stops. The system offered me a rare military banner. Legendary artillery retainer. Storm cavalry contract. Fortress ward array. Each icon promised a clean answer to an army problem. I looked at the coalition map. Vane depended on grain moving from 3 western depots. Morkant depended on river barges and paid information. Vale's army could win any fair field battle, but required more than 100 supply wagons per week. I chose the Foundation Logistics banner. Standardized wagon and axle plans. Interlocking field granary seals. Compact signal kits. Mobile kitchen and water purification modules. The system delivered drawings, measurements, and 1 demonstration set. Nothing replicated itself. Orin stared at the axle plan. Good tolerances, he said grudgingly. Grusk looked over his shoulder. Hub too narrow. For Goblin Road, perhaps. For Wet Road. Water does not care who builds. They changed the hub. Within 10 days, Greenvale's workshops produced matching wagon parts that could be swapped between units. Mira sealed reserve stores with numbers assigned at loading. Tavi divided caravans into small packets that could take different roads. Core GUH established hidden horse relays. Garrick placed field kitchens where smoke would not reveal camps. The work spread through the city by craft rather than species, although each group brought habits worth keeping. Hearthclan wheelwrights cut joint faces with small hooked planes that left less space for water. Dwarven smiths standardized iron tire thickness and stamped every batch with a maker mark. Human cartwrights adjusted the beds for Greenvale's existing harnesses. Ash tusk handlers widened the lead bars so frightened horses could be released without crawling beneath a wagon. Orin built 1 demonstration axle in the market and invited every workshop to find a flaw. They found 11. He looked delighted for the rest of the day. Public kitchens practiced packing meals that could travel. Helsa rejected the system's compact ration paste after 1 taste. An army that eats this will surrender to anyone offering soup, she said. The final field ration used sun wheat biscuit, smoked fish, dried pepper roots, and concentrated broth wrapped in wax cloth. It weighed slightly more than the system version and gave soldiers a reason to look forward to boiling water. Lyru trained non-healers to purify that water correctly. Mira made them sign that they had received the instructions. Grusk replaced the signature line for Hearthclan crews with personal seal marks because several excellent engineers did not read human script. The record kept its purpose without turning literacy into loyalty. At the signal yard, Pip tested compact lantern shutters with children, older residents, and guards who had lost hearing in battle. Color alone failed in fog. Horn calls failed the deaf crews. They added shape boards for daylight, shutter rhythms for darkness, and raised basket patterns visible above smoke. The system had given us a signal kit. Greenvale turned it into a language more people could use. That difference ran through every reward we had drawn. A blueprint could be clever and still know nothing about our mod, our hands, our injuries, or the people expected to trust it. By the time the coalition moved, the wagons were no longer system equipment. They were Greenvale's. War was a hungry animal. I could not defeat its teeth first. I could decide what it ate. We emptied the farms outside the western drainage line. Families moved livestock, seed grain, tools, and roof thatch behind the walls. No one liked abandoning a home, even for a week. Some stood in doorways touching lintels their hands had raised. Ward teams labeled every cart so people could find belongings after fear scattered them. Orin ordered shallow cuts made across 2 approach roads and covered them with removable bridge panels. Grusk installed hidden anchor sockets beside the river. The wagon barricade at the north wall finally disappeared beneath a proper local stone gatehouse with timber fighting platforms and Hearthclan braces visible under the arch. Ugly, Orin said. Strong, Grusk said. Both can be true. The gate opened onto the road that now fed us. That made it the center of our defense rather than its weakest patch. Mira's inspectors found the depot poison on the 6th day. 2 laborers delivered lime sacks bearing correct seals. The weights were wrong by less than a cup. Anna noticed one digit had been pressed with an older stamp. Inside the lime were glass vials of bitter black concentrate meant for the water barrels. The laborers were Morcon agents carrying Greenvale work tokens copied from Pell's old plates. Under questioning, one gave us the signal schedule for a river crossing 3 nights later. We changed none of our visible patrols. Core GUH moved outriders through the dry creek beds. Pip's indoor signal team tracked lamp codes from the west tower. Captain Joe Rin waited with scouts near the crossing. Morcon's barges arrived to find the landing stakes removed and the shoreline marked with false depth poles. 2 grounded in mud. The rest withdrew under arrow fire aimed at sails, not crews. We captured correspondence, coin chests, and a white and gold metal seal wrapped in blue cloth. Serafina recognized it before I cleaned the mud away. A sunburst surrounded a 7-pointed star. Solarian. Her face lost all color. This belonged to the Eastern Reliquary Office, she said. The list from Thornwatch named 3 seals. This one was recorded in Lord Morcont's private collection. She held it carefully, as if the small object were hot. We can publish it, Mira said. Proof Rivergate retained stolen Solarian property. Serafina's fingers closed around the seal. For one moment, grief and anger fought openly across her expression. Her shoulders squared as though she were back before a fallen court, expected to defend everything alone. Then she opened her hand. Publish the inventory record, she said. Keep the seal secured until lawful recovery can be arranged. This war must not become my revenge. Her choice did not resolve Solaris. It proved she could carry its memory without letting it command Greenvale. The next morning, the coalition crossed our borders on 3 fronts. Westmere advanced from the west behind grain wagons and levy spears. Rivergate pushed up the river road with hired archers and engineers. Highwatch marched down the north road in disciplined black-armored columns. Garrick stood over the map in the gatehouse. Vale expects you to keep command from here, he said. Would that be wrong? Yes. He said it without hesitation. When I first arrived in Greenvale, Garrick had expected me to ruin 37 people. Now he expected me to understand when I was the least useful commander in the room. I removed the marshal's baton from the wall rack and held it out. The field army is yours. He looked at the baton but did not take it immediately. And if I order retreat, I make sure the city receives you. If I abandon ground you promised to defend, I ask why after you survive. If Serafina disagrees, Serafina rested one gauntlet fist over her heart. I obey the marshal in the field. Garrick took the baton. His eyes shone briefly beneath the gatehouse lamps. Then hold the city, he said. Bring its people home. He walked through the north gate at the head of an army he had built from farmers, refugees, former enemies, goblin engineers, orc riders, healers, cooks, clerks, and every lesson Greenvale had paid for. The battle began long before the first shield struck. Vale took the north road because it was the best road. That was the first thing we had counted on. I followed the field campaign from Greenvale through shutter signals, courier slates, and Garrick's written reports. The details reached me hours after the people living them, sometimes reduced to 6 words pressed into wax. Pip's dawn board placed Highwatch's vanguard at Whitewater in perfect order. Shield wagons first, engineers behind them, infantry columns marching beside supply carts. Vale had studied the tournament. He brought spare axles, medical teams, and enough bridging timber to bypass a destroyed span. We did not destroy the bridge. Grusk's first signal reported that Hearthclan had welcomed his engineers to it. Hearthclan had removed 3 harmless-looking locking pins from the west approach. Highwatch's first companies crossed safely. So did the second. When the heavy supply wagons reached the center, Grusk released the modular side span and swung it downstream on hidden river anchors. No one fell. The wagons simply stopped on the wrong bank, while Bale's infantry continued east without food. Core GUH's next courier described her riders appearing behind the separated convoy. They cut harness traces, scattered draft animals, and burned only the wagons carrying spare bridge gear. Greenvale's signal crews raised white flags over the trapped drivers and offered surrender. Half accepted before Bale could send orders back. He advanced anyway. Reports from the western wards arrived more slowly. Vane's levy filled the road in golden-brown ranks, but his soldiers carried 3 days of food because he expected to capture our outer stores. They found empty granaries, stripped fields, covered wells, and public boards displaying Vane's partition plan. At the first abandoned village, someone had left bread on a table beside a note. Greenvale feeds prisoners. Westmere feeds lords. Garrick denied ordering it. So did Mira. Tavi looked innocent enough to confirm guilt. The Southern Signal Office reported Rivergate archers attacking our depots while Morkant's barges tried the main landing. They found Lyrua's hospital boats crossing openly beneath white cloth and hesitated to fire. That hesitation let Greenvale engineers close the river chain behind them. Morkant's captains were not loyal enough to drown for a contract. 2 barges surrendered. 3 withdrew. 1 landed its troops on the muddy east bank, where Sella's geese attacked before the ward guard arrived. The official report about Sella's geese did not improve the incident. For 2 days, the coalition pushed inward without joining. That was the weakness beneath its numbers. Bale wanted military control. Vane wanted stores preserved for profit. Morkant wanted bridges and warehouses intact. Each expected the other 2 to pay the larger cost. We encouraged discussion. Pip's signal teams sent captured Rivergate codes suggesting Westmere had negotiated a separate withdrawal. Core GUH released Highwatch drivers with truthful accounts of Vane's untouched reserve wagons. Mira sent copies of Morkant's spy payments to every coalition officer whose name did not appear on the payroll. No lie carried the plan alone. The truth was divisive enough. The war still cost us. A Highwatch scouting company caught one of our road patrols north of Slate Run. 6 Greenvale guards died holding a narrow cut while the medical wagon escaped. Captain Jorin returned after dark with a split above one eye and 1 empty saddle tied behind him. Pip was waiting at the signal office. He recognized the saddle before anyone spoke. The missing rider was Noel, an older scout who had taught him to whistle through an acorn cap. Pip's face went blank. His hands remained at his sides, but both fists closed so tightly that his nails marked his palms. "Did he bring the map home?" he asked. Jorin removed a rain-stained case from inside his coat. "He made sure I did." Pip accepted it with both hands. "We added 6 names to the ash tree stone. Their families kept homes, shares, and full support. Victory would not turn them into a number we used to prove the plan worked." Westmere burned 2 evacuated farmsteads when it found the stores empty. From the wall, orange light moved across roofs people had built during Greenvale's first expansion. Marin watched his brother's house collapse through a field lens. His breathing roughened. For a moment, I thought he would ask me to send troops back for the building. "Seed grain is inside?" he asked. "All moved. Tools. Ward carts have them." He lowered the lens. "Then we build it better." The words did not make him less angry. They gave the anger useful work. Rivergate tried buying what it could not take. One of Morkant's factors reached Tavi under a white negotiation flag and offered her caravan families protected passage, warehouse licenses, and enough silver to establish their own market beyond Greenvale's law. All she had to provide was the timing of our reserve grain movements. Tavi let him finish. Then she made him repeat the offer in front of 2 ward witnesses and Mirara's recording clerk. "You still think we are guests waiting for a better invitation," she told him. Her tale had gone completely still, which I had learned was more dangerous than lashing. "My people argued for those kitchens, dug those drains, voted for those inspectors, and buried neighbors under that ash tree. You cannot bribe us with permission to leave home." The factor returned to Rivergate without his dignity or secrecy. Tavi was not the only ally they tested. Vane sent Core GUH a deed to the Winter Valley he had taken from her clan, 40 wagons of grain, and recognition as its hereditary warden. The price was 1 night of open passage across the eastern flank. Core GUH brought the deed to our council fire. "Good Valley," she said. Her thumb traced the map line where her families had wintered. "My mother buried there. My oldest born there." Garrick watched her across the flames. This was the risk he had warned me about beside the first Ash Tusk camp. Core GUH fed the deed to the fire. "A lord cannot gift what he stole," she said. "We take road home with Greenvale law, or we find another road." Morkant offered Grusk a stamped quarry title, exclusive bridge tolls, and enough silver to rebuild Whitewater in dressed stone. He only had to lock the modular spans when Garrick's army returned. Grusk used the title to patch a leak in a lime barrel. "Paper finally did useful work," he told Mira. Garrick looked from the burning deed to the patched barrel. His guarded expression eased by a fraction. They kept the agreement, he said to me later. They improved it. Do not become unbearable about this. I will delegate that to Mir. At the field hospitals, Lyru managed the part of war maps hit. Mud covered the floors despite plank walks. Boiled linen hung from every line. Healers moved beneath white flags with sleeves rolled past their elbows, calling injury colors rather than uniforms. A Westmere boy with an arrow through his thigh lay beside a Hearth-clan slinger burned by lamp oil. Their hands found each other during treatment because both were frightened and neither cared who had fired first. Lyru slept in stretches shorter than some bandage changes. When a Greenvale guard objected to enemy wounded receiving willow bark, she turned on him with dark circles beneath her green eyes. Pain does not become patriotic because we ran low, she said. Bring more bark or move out of my doorway. He brought more bark. The system awarded prosperity points for captured wagons and allied supply. I closed the notices. Some improvements were real and still did not feel like rewards. Garrick fought in short movements. He yielded the northern ridge before Bale could pin him there, then used Grusk's portable spans to cross the slate run at 2 points overnight. Highwatch woke facing empty defenses while Greenvale's mixed battalions threatened its exposed wagon route. Corps GUH's outriders never remained where heavy cavalry expected them. Hearth-clan sappers opened old drainage cuts under siege cart paths. Tavi's couriers moved through refugee family networks the coalition did not know existed. Every road camp offered the same terms to conscripts: surrender weapons, receive food and treatment, remain under guard, and return home after lawful review. At first, 12 came, then 40. Then an entire Westmere Spear Company arrived carrying its wounded captain on a door. Lyru treated him before asking his name. By the third evening, Vane's advance stopped because his soldiers had begun counting our bread against his promises. Bale solved the coalition's hesitation by taking direct command. Black Tower horns sounded across the valley before dawn. Highwatch infantry turned south, absorbed the remaining Westmere formations, and marched toward Greenvale in one dense column. Morkant's archers moved along the river flank. Garrick sent one message. Main coalition force committed. Returning by North Road. Prepare outer wards. The cold open morning had arrived. 3 banners surrounded my city. Below the wall, Bale's herald demanded our surrender. No, I told him. The herald rode back. Highwatch drums began. Bale attacked the western ward first. It was our newest district, built beyond the old palisade with low stone foundations and timber upper walls. From outside it looked crowded and vulnerable. Inside, the residents had evacuated through drainage lanes before dawn. Store carts rolled east under ward colors. Clinic teams marked cleared houses with white chalk. Every alley ended at a removable barrier or a covered channel. Highwatch breached the outer wall and found no panicked civilians to trap. Greenvale defenders withdrew one lane at a time. They did not hold timber for pride. They delayed, counted, and moved. From the north gatehouse, I watched signal baskets rise over the roofs. Blue, ward cleared. White, wounded moving. Green, supplies received. Red, enemy pressure. Pip stood beside the signal crews with 3 maps open around him. His sandy hair stuck to his forehead beneath the russet green hood. He was frightened. I could see it in the quick movement of his breathing and the way he checked the same marker twice. He kept working. Marshal requests reserve shields at Stone Lane, he said. Send Ward 2 cohort. Already moving. Then why ask? I was informing you politely. He sounded exactly like Mira. The north gate opened behind us. Our road allies came through. Hearth-clan workers rolled bridge carts into the city and turned them into street barricades. Corps GUH's outriders entered with Highwatch dust on their rust-red armor. Farmers from patrol villages brought food wagons. Dwarven quarry crews carried short hammers and tower shields. Elven growers arrived with water teams and bitterleaf smoke bundles for enemy horses. The gate Bale meant to sever had become the route that kept us alive. His next assault drove into Stone Lane. Garrick commanded from behind the first shield block. Blue-gray officer armor scratched white across the chest. His injured left leg was braced, but pain had tightened his mouth. He shifted weight with every order and never pretended the movement was effortless. Highwatch formations were stronger than ours in a direct push, so Garrick did not give them one. He opened the center barrier, drew Bale's elite company into the market lane, then closed side streets with Hearthclan bridge frames. Water crews released a shallow rush through the drainage stones. Mud formed beneath heavy black boots. Greenvale's lighter shield files struck from 3 directions and withdrew before the enemy could turn as a block. Seraphina met Bale's champion at the well. Sir Aldrin Pike wore black plate and carried a tower-shaped shield reinforced with iron ribs. His first blow rang against Seraphina's sun's shield hard enough to scatter droplets from the well basin. They fought between market stalls already emptied of civilians. Aldrin used strength and disciplined angles. Seraphina used space. Her long golden hair had come loose behind her helmet, bright against the rain-dark square. She gave ground when the lane narrowed and turned every heavy strike away from the clinic route. Solaris is dead, Aldrin said between blows. Do not die for its imitation. Seraphina's expression hardened. Greenvale is not an imitation. She trapped his shield against a stone post, stepped inside his sword arm, and put him on the ground. Her blade stopped at his throat. Yield. He looked beyond her. Highwatch soldiers were carrying Greenvale wounded toward Lyrua's white flags because the hospital accepted both sides. Hearthclan crews held a barricade beside human guards. Core GUH's riders dismounted to move children from a damaged shelter. Aldrin let go of his sword. Seraphina helped him stand. At the western lane, Vane tried to withdraw with his remaining grain wagons. Core GUH's outriders blocked the road without charging. Marin and a mixed ward company closed behind the wagons. Before residents from the burned farms could drag Vane from his carriage, Garrick's deputy read the charges aloud. Manufactured scarcity, unlawful road closure, conspiracy to partition, and armed invasion. Vane demanded noble immunity. Marin held up the published partition agreement with the 6-vaned false banner wrapped around it. You can demand it at the hearing, he said. Vane surrendered his sword under 12 witnesses and was taken to the same guarded storehouse where his levy soldiers received food. Morkant's hired captains discovered their payment chests contained sealed correspondence proving she planned to blame them for the depot poison. 2 crossed to our side. Another opened the river road and fled. A blue river signal rose above the south tower, command barge secured. Morkant had tried to retreat upstream behind hospital boats. She assumed we would not fire through. The captains she meant to sacrifice refused the order. Greenvale's river guard boarded under a white flag while a March court observer from the tournament witnessed the surrender terms. Morkant yielded her seal and was arrested for espionage, depot poisoning, unlawful toll conspiracy, and invasion. The coalition began separating at exactly the moment Bale needed it to become one army. He drove toward the north gate himself. Black-armored guards formed around him. Bale fought with a short war hammer, controlled and efficient, breaking shield rims rather than chasing individual soldiers. He reached the gatehouse steps before Garrick's reserve closed behind him. I met him beneath the arch. You built an impressive rebellion, he said. Rain ran from his iron-gray hair. Blood marked one edge of his armor, though I could not tell whose. We applied for a charter. You armed goblins and orcs against lawful lords. They armed themselves after lawful lords stole their roads. His face tightened. He was angry, but more than that, he was offended by a world that no longer fit his categories. People need one command. Armies sometimes do. Cities need agreement about what command is allowed to do. He raised the hammer. I was not Seraphina. I caught the first strike on a construction shield and felled it through my shoulder. The second cracked the rim. I backed toward the gate winch while Bale advanced, expecting fear or pride to keep me in the duel. I had no pride about duels. I pulled the release. The counterweight dropped. A repair cradle swung from beneath the arch, exactly as Orin and Grusk designed it for lifting gate stones. The rope frame caught Bale's hammer arm and dragged him sideways. He cut one line, but Garrick struck the weapon from his hand before he freed the second. Core GUH's axe stopped at his back. Seraphina's sword stopped at his chest. Garrick's shield pressed against his shoulder. 3 people Bale's partition agreement had reduced to champion, cripple, and hostile migrant held his life. Yield, Garrick said. Bale looked across the square. Highwatch banners were lowering. Westmere soldiers gathered beside food stations under guard. Rivergate captains handed Mira contract cases faster than she could number them. The city he meant to divide was feeding the army he could no longer command. He dropped to one knee. The War of Three Lords ended beneath a gate built from a wagon barricade. The March Court arrived 6 days later. This time its blue banners came down an open road. Magistrates inspected the partition agreement, Morcant's spy payments, Vane's grain orders, Bale's occupation plan, the Solarian inventory record, and enough forged toll documents to build a small wall from paper. They also inspected us. They walked the wards without advance notice. They compared warehouse counts to public boards. They interviewed prisoners, old residents, Hearthclan elders, Ash Tusk families, surrendered soldiers, traitors, healers, and people who had criticized me loudly enough to prove the hearings were not staged. Sulla complained about the geese receiving no official credit for capturing a Rivergate archer. The magistrate recorded it. Lord Vane lost control of the grain offices he had used to manufacture scarcity. Lady Morcant's merchant authority was suspended pending trial, her private collections seized for rights review. Lord Bale surrendered Highwatch command and faced judgment for unlawful occupation. Their territories were not handed to me. Greenvale did not win by becoming the thing it opposed. The court placed the disputed roads and stores under temporary regional administration with local councils and published accounts. Communities could petition for alliance, self-rule, or new representation after the emergency. On the 10th morning, the presiding magistrate stood in our market square. The repaired well gleamed behind her. Stone channels carried clean water beneath plank bridges. The north gate rose above roads lined with workshops, ward kitchens, clinics, homes, and banners in more colors than Greenvale had possessed cloth 6 months earlier. The population count stood at 8,473. Humans filled most of the square. Hearthclan goblins stood on the north steps. Ash Tusk families gathered beside their horses. Dwarven masons sat on unfinished foundation blocks. Elven growers watched from beneath market awnings threaded with drying herbs. Beastkin children occupied every roof adults had failed to forbid. The magistrate opened the charter. By evidence of sustained population, public law, defended territory, protected commerce, independent institutions, and the freely recorded will of its residents, the March Court recognizes Greenvale as an independent chartered city. For one breath, no one moved. Then the square became sound. Garrick lowered his head. His broad shoulders shook once before he straightened. Pip climbed onto the well rim and nearly fell when 3 scouts hugged him at the same time. Mira closed her eyes over the final register as if allowing herself one private second of satisfaction. Tavi laughed and cried without choosing between them. Grusk struck the stone step with his brass hammer. Good foundation, he declared. Orin scowled at the step. Corner is uneven. Your corner. Then someone moved it. Corguh pressed the broken tusk token into the charter table beside the Ash Tusk Alliance seal. Sarah Fana stood beneath Greenvale's banner, golden hair bright in the morning sun. She did not look like the last knight of a dead kingdom. She looked like the first knight of this city. The first city council was too large, too loud, and short 3 chairs. Garrick accepted the office of marshal. Lyru became head of the public health wards and immediately demanded a sanitation budget before congratulations. Mira became chief recorder with authority to audit the council itself. Tavi represented the caravan wards. Grusk took the Whitewater Road seat. Corguh accepted an allied clan seat that did not require Ash Tusk families to abandon their own leadership. The original 37 families received a founding record and stewardship seats for the first charter term, not permanent power over later citizens. No one received everything they wanted. Everyone received a lawful way to keep arguing. That evening, Greenvale celebrated along the North Road. Long tables crossed old ward lines. Helsa served sunwheat cakes with Tavi's pepper syrup. Hearthclan cooks roasted mushrooms beside dwarf salt ovens. Ash Tusk riders traded horse stories with farmers who had once hidden at the site of orc tracks. Bramble wore a green ribbon around one horn and stole food from every culture equally. I escaped to the unfinished western wall after sunset. The city below was larger than the fortified town from the feast. Not grander in the way nobles meant. There were no marble palaces, no golden towers, and no streets wide enough for a victory army to admire itself. There were straight drains, warm windows, busy clinics, roof gardens, stone workshops, public boards, guarded stores, and open gates. Bridge braces showed beneath the northern arch. New foundations met the old palisade instead of hiding it. Green and gold banners moved above wards that had chosen their own smaller colors beneath them. Lyru found me without asking anyone where I had gone. She wore a clean moss green dress, though a streak of flower crossed one sleeve. Her chestnut braid hung over her shoulder. She leaned beside me on the wall and looked at the city. "You are missing your celebration again," she said. "I attended most of it. You attended the part where they made you sign things. That is the official definition." She smiled, then grew quiet. "Independent city," she said. "Apparently. 8,000 people. Mira says 8,473, but I believe she counts Bramble twice for administrative burden." Lyrua's shoulder touched mine. Below us, Pip's signal lanterns blinked along the road. A goblin drum answered from white water, softened by the distance until it felt like another pulse beneath the city. Her green eyes reflected the city lights. "When I met you," she said, "I thought you were another Ashford who would leave us with the cost." "Reasonable. You keep trying to leave us with the cost of losing you instead." I looked down at our hands resting on the wall stone. "I am working on that." "Work faster." Her fingers threaded through mine. This time it was not an accident. I turned toward her. She did not step away. Warmth rose into her face, and mine probably did the same. The bell in the square rang before either of us decided what came next. Lyru closed her eyes. "I hate that bell. We could outlaw it. Mira would require a hearing." We laughed, still holding hands. The system opened above the city. Territory evolution recognized. Greenvale Independent City. Population 8,473. Security 72. Food stability 63. Prosperity 68. Loyalty 76. City-level banner available. Then the emerald light flickered. New notices appeared beneath the reward. Kingdom of Lemuria. Succession authority fractured. Regional migration pressure increasing. Kingdom Gotcha reconstruction mandate. Incomplete. Purpose record remains sealed pending higher territory authority. Solarian artifact resonance detected beyond the eastern marches. Deep territory mana pattern changed beneath Greenvale. Far below the wall, through stone and soil, something vast shifted under the mine. The vibration passed through my boots and into the city foundation. It was not an attack. Not yet. Beside me, Lyru tightened her hand around mine. Greenvale was not a kingdom. I was not a king. We had won a road, built a city, exposed the people stealing inside it, and defeated 3 lords who believed difference made us weak. The next danger would be larger. So were we. I closed the unopened city banner. "Tomorrow," I said. Lyru looked at the celebration below, then at me. "You used that excuse before. It worked out reasonably well." She pulled me back toward the stairs. Greenvale's gates remained open behind us. For the first time, they belonged to a city no lord could divide.